Welcome, doctors. Do you feel the brain power on the stage? Well, I'm going to be randomly asking questions. Well, Dr. Harper, you had a successful dental practice for over 26 years, and you've been quite instrumental in the DSHA Act, also known as Dietary Supplement Health Educational Act in 1994. Now, obviously, you have had wonderful clinical practices, and I'm sure we love working with you as Scientific Advisory Board member. Can you briefly introduce yourself? I know our audience know about you already, but also tell us about why you joined Isagenix.
When people mention the DSHA Act, most of you probably don't really even realize what that is, but back in 1990, the FDA was in the process of putting out rules that would keep the dietary supplement industry from being able to put more than 3 times the recommended daily allowance into a pill that could be sold over the counter. And they couldn't make any claims whatsoever. And at that time, they didn't even have any claims for calcium. So the FDA didn't allow any claims for any supplements at all. For vitamin B12, that would have meant that you could only have a maximum of 36 micrograms, well, which is just a ridiculous value. So at that time, it wasn't very cool to be complementary medicine. In fact, a lot of doctors were losing their licenses at that time when they got into complementary medicine. And I was approached by Ray Howard, and myself and Dr. Arbon, we went and spoke to Senator Hatch. And at that time, we sat down and spoke to him about these upcoming regulations. And he said, I will sponsor legislation to stop this, but you have to understand that you are literally fighting the most powerful lobby in Washington. And it will take a tremendous grassroots effort to get this through. And what took place after that was, sure enough, there was a tremendous outpouring of public support for this. And even then, it took 4 years to get it through. And fortunately, because of that, because of Senator Hatch, we were able to save that type of a supplement industry, because otherwise we wouldn't have had it.
Thank you, Dr. Harper. That's one of the reasons why we're able to enjoy dietary supplements and Isagenix products today. So thank you, Dr. Harper. So why did you join Isagenix?
Oh, I constantly get inundated, all doctors do, with patients bringing in products. And it's nice to finally find one that actually worked. And once I found that, it was an easy thing. I mean, when I lost 25 pounds in a matter of 5 weeks, and gain 3 pounds of muscle mass without exercising, that gets your attention very, very rapidly, and it was an easy conversion.
Well, Dr. Colgan, well, you're a well-known physiologist. You wrote a number of books. I mean, your credential is so impressive. You developed many formulas for other companies, and obviously you work with some various elite athletes. You had an opportunity to work for other companies. Why did you join Isagenix?
Well, I was looking. I was working for Big Pharma, but I was looking. And I looked at a lot of companies, and I had 6 criteria. First of all, was the people, and the products, and the science, and then the systems. And working in Big Pharma, you are very restricted. You only affect you have a very small influence. When things finally come out, it's 10, 15 years, and then they only go out to a small minority. So it's not a very satisfying occupation. So my 5th criterion was reach. Company's got to have some reach. It's got to get to a lot of people quick. And then the 6th one was culture. So I examined several companies. I had several offers. And Isagenix came out far above all the others. And that's why I joined.
That's great. Well, Dr. Mayberry, you have a toxicology and PhD. You also work for NASA. It's a very interesting combination. Wonderful accomplishment. I know you got some wonderful stories to tell. So can you tell us why you joined Isagenix?
Yes, I'm an environmental toxicologist, food nutritional toxicologist, and I also happen to be a space toxicologist for NASA. When I got introduced to Isagenix, I had just accepted a new assignment with NASA, which moved me from my home in Houston to Los Angeles area to work at the Jet Propulsion Lab in Pasadena, California. That was very, very stressful because I brought my daughter with me, but I had to leave my husband in Houston, who's still working at Johnson Space Center. In that first month, I gained about 6 pounds. Tried to eat properly, but I was house hunting. I didn't have my own kitchen, and I was miserable. So being a toxicologist, I knew how important it was to cleanse the body and to give the body a break, and I knew that I needed a break so that I wouldn't get sick. So I said, okay, well, I'm about to go on this really harsh fast. I was used to fasting. I would fast. I would do a liquid diet with supplements. One of my friends, she happened to introduce me to a personal trainer who said, well, why don't you come out to this party? And I said, I don't know about this. Really skeptical. But I said, you know what, I don't have anything to do. I'll bring my daughter, and we went over there. First thing I did was I said, just hand me the containers. Hand me the containers. I don't really want to hear the spiel. I'm looking at the containers, I start reading them, and I'm so impressed with the broad spectrum of vitamins, minerals, trace minerals that you need, the amino acids, all of the botanicals that I know that they have scientific evidence for actually helping the detoxifying organs of the body. But I still said, well, you know, I know the FDA does not regulate these supplements, so what's on the label may not match what's actually inside this bottle. So I said, okay, I'm going to try it. I did a clinical trial on myself. Scientists are crazy like that. But I said, if what's on this label matches what's inside these bottles, it's going to work for me. And in the first 9 days, I lost 11 pounds. I lost over 21 inches from my body in 2 months. And so far, I've lost almost 30 inches, and I've lost well over 20 pounds. I have gained lean muscle mass, and I feel good. And I know that now that I've cleansed my body, I've given my body the opportunity to not only better absorb the nutrients from my food, but also better absorb the nutrients from the other Isagenix products. So I really, really, you know, I was convinced at that point. The skeptic in me kind of just went away.
Great. You look marvelous, by the way. Can you see Isagenix 5 years from today we'll have more toxicologists in our audience? Wouldn't that be wonderful? Well, Dr. Colgan, there's a mounting evidence that we lose muscle. Obviously, there's a long-term detrimental effect. So what do you think is the value of muscle retention as well as the muscle growth with age?
Oh gosh, so many values, but one of them is pretty simple. Gravity is always trying to pull you out through the soles of your feet. I mean, you see lots of double chins, but never a double forehead. But the only thing that is actually holding up the skeleton is the muscle. When you take the muscle away, the skeleton is a pile of bones on the floor. The majority of Americans over age 60 don't have enough muscle left to hold their skeleton up. So that, you know, that pain in the neck, that ache in the back, that really consistent discomfort in the patootie is a result of the decline of muscle. So the body no longer holds itself up. That's one of the simplest things. So you have to maintain muscle as you age. And it is totally, completely retainable. That's the good thing about it. We don't do it, but it's totally easy to do. The second thing is that muscle provides the glutamine that your immune system uses to build every one of its cells. As you lose muscle with age, there you lose the ability to build immune cells. Most people don't even know that. So there's two huge reasons for maintaining muscle as you age. And it is easy to do. And Isagenix will show you the right way to do it.
Just to add to that, there was a publication in Journal of American Medical Association this week, which states that you need to incorporate high-protein diet for long-term health weight management. And so, you know what? Isagenix is going the right path. Don't you agree? Yes. Dr. Harper, I'm sure you have many patients nowadays with a current obesity trend with a syndrome X or metabolic syndrome. Can you explain to our audience about what metabolic syndrome is and why the Isagenix pillars of health make sense for them?
Certainly, this is something that's just been identified probably in the last 10 to 15 years, and it's called many different names. You have syndrome X, you have insulin resistance, you have, oh gosh, I've forgotten, there's about 6 other names associated with it. But essentially what it is your body loses its capability to get glucose into the cells. And how this takes place, at least now all of it's not completely understood, but I'll tell you what I believe is taking place and what I've seen over my years of practice, and that is as your carbohydrates or your high glycemic index foods go up in your diet, it stimulates your pancreas to produce insulin. And unfortunately, that insulin overshoots the mark and gets very, very high. When that insulin gets very, very high, what happens? Then it stimulates arachidonic acid. Now, if I get, Diane, if I start getting carried away, just stand up, let me know, okay? But with the increase in arachidonic acid, what that does is it stimulates inflammatory processes. It goes to prostaglandin E2s, which increase inflammation, increase water retention, increase blood pressure, increase all kinds of problems associated with our body. So the more, and then there's another thing that happens with insulin levels when they keep going up. The receptors in the cells, their capability to receive that glucose goes down. So the question is, what's going on? That's why we're seeing so many diabetics, type 2 diabetics now. And it's estimated that anywhere from 20 to 25% of the population is suffering from this syndrome. So how do you reverse this? I mean, well, you look at Isagenix. Isagenix is built on lower carbohydrates. It's very important. I've been telling my patients for, gosh, ever since I attended a conference back in 1993 where they talked about the protein power diet, the Atkins diet, the zone diet. All of those diets are essentially lowering your carbs. And as you lower your carbs, your high glycemic index foods, what takes place is then the insulin levels drop. And when the insulin levels drop, the receptor activity comes back up again. And the arachidonic acid levels go down, which reduces the inflammatory state in your body. So Isagenix is actually designed with that less than 40% carbohydrates in mind, and it has been from the very beginning. So can you see why I would want to do this?
Thank you. Of course, Isagenix has better protein than some of these other protein diets that's out there in the market, in my own humble opinion. As a toxicologist, Dr. Mayberry, you have a lot of experience evaluating toxins in food and water. And of course, a lot of these toxins are stored in the fat. So can you share how these toxins will contribute to obesity and inflammation?
Certainly. Not only are we exposed to toxins, which are the natural toxins such as bacteria and virus, but we're mostly exposed to toxicants, which are the man-made chemicals. A lot of times we hear the word toxins used, but we're missing the full spectrum of chemicals that we're exposed to. There are thousands and thousands of toxicants that we are exposed to on a daily basis. Every time you enter a new space, a new room, a new house, a new environment, you're exposed to a different chemical mixture. And that's how it enters into our air. The reason it comes into our air is because of our man-made processes. We demand energy from fossil fuels. We demand plastics. We use plastics everywhere. And a lot of these plasticizers, they become airborne. They get into our food. They get into our water. A lot of times they get into our food. They get into our groundwater, and a lot of them have a really long residence time. They're not broken down easily. So when we inhale them or we ingest them, these toxins and toxicants, they are fat soluble. Your body works to make them more water soluble so you can eliminate them. When your body cannot make them water soluble, they get stored into your fat and they bathe your organs. And you're walking around with these accumulated storage depots of chemicals in your fat. So you're intoxicated, not with alcohol, but literally with toxins and toxicants. So when you've got all these chemicals that are stored in your fat, your body holds on to them in the fat, trying to not expose the rest of your body to these chemicals, trying to keep them out of circulation. So your body's holding on to this fat, and it is very difficult to lose it. Plus, your body's inflamed. Whenever you eat these processed foods that most of us come across, even if we try to go to the best restaurants, our bodies tend to treat these foods like they're foreign invaders. So you're inflamed. There's no reason that food should be something that our body feels is attacking us. So we're in this constant state of inflammation. And when you take a product like Isagenix, a lot of the ingredients, I talked about the botanicals earlier, but a lot of these ingredients, these botanicals, are full of vitamins, full of minerals, full of broad spectrum enzymes, and they will actually allow the fat to start to release, dissolve the fat. When you dissolve the fat, you're getting rid of these chemicals. These chemicals get back into circulation, so sometimes when you're first time cleansing, some people have symptoms, and that's okay. But you have to understand that you've got to cleanse the body in order for you to be able to absorb the nutrients, like I said earlier, that are in the Isagenix products, that are in the foods that you eat.
Thank you. Dr. Messina, obviously you told us about how you lost your weight. You know what, the metabolic syndrome and epidemic of obesity trend in the United States is horrifying, especially when we're seeing young kids having a diabetic type 2. So how are you helping with these patients? I mean, this is epidemic in this country.
It's so difficult. I'd love to really share what my experience has been, but I find myself having to guard my words so carefully. I had metabolic syndrome. I seem to have lost it somewhere. I can't find it. My 2 obese nurses had metabolic syndrome. We're still looking for it. We don't know where it went, but it's just not around anymore. I can't say what it's from, but you were mentioning the obesity epidemic, and yes, it's horrifying, but a lot of press right now about the type 2 diabetes epidemic. Well, I did a little mathematics. If we took away every overweight, obese, and morbidly obese diabetic, or I'm sorry, yes, diabetic, we would no longer have a diabetes epidemic. Maybe it's just me, but, are further epidemics all piling out of this primary obesity epidemic? And yeah, metabolic syndrome also. Where's it coming from? People are obese. Their lipid profile is out of whack. They have comorbid situations such as high blood pressure and diabetes. When they get their body back in check, a lot of these things are no longer a factor. So when we start to eat right, we pay attention to exercise, we focus on lifestyle modification. A lot of these things that are plaguing our population right now tend to get better.
Yeah, I agree. And I think we could defy a lot of these.
Yeah.
And I do think that we could defy a lot of lifestyle diseases. Yeah. Dr. Mayberry, obviously there's an association with stress and toxins, and I call these endotoxins. So how do you see the pillars of health affecting, especially Ionic Supremes, on stress and how it's affecting toxins?
Ionic Supreme is one of my favorite products that Isagenix has.
Way to go.
One of my favorites. Everybody, morning and evening, take your, take your Ionic Supreme. I just don't feel right if I don't take it. You guys feel the same way? Your body tells you when you're not taking your Ionics. The reason that Ionics is such a wonderful product, it's got so many superfoods concentrated into that one little scoop. So many vitamins, so many minerals. When you're stressed, generally, Now, we all know that stress exacerbates any disease. So if you've got something that's laying dormant, that has been laying dormant for years, that's just ready to erupt into the disease state, stress is going to exacerbate it. When you take Ionic Supreme, they've got these anti-inflammatories. It's antibacterial, antimicrobial. It lowers your blood sugar, and it allows you to have that mental clarity again. A lot of times we become stressed because we are tired. We don't have mental clarity. When you take the Ionic Supreme, it allows you to adapt to stress, and that's what's most important. The adaptogens in the Ionic Supreme allows you to adapt to stress. Physical stress, mental stress, all types of stress, the adaptogens that are in that Ionic Supreme are priceless. You can't find it anywhere else. I mean, when I tried to do my own personal cleanse, what I did with my supplements, nowhere near what the Isagenix product system offered me. I mean, such a well-designed system. I mean, hats off to Isagenix. Thank you.
Thank you. Dr. Colgan, so why does whey protein mix in our isolate shake such important pillars of health? And what's so unique about whey protein?
Well, it is, whey protein itself is not unique. It's the second protein in milk. It's 5% of the milk. But what is unique about the isolene and isopro proteins, there are a number of characteristics. First of all, they're undenatured. I won't go into it too much, but I can tell you that an undenatured protein still has essential locks in it, called their amino acid bonded together that form keys that open protein locks in the body. If you denature it, as most of the whey protein is, then you lose those keys and it doesn't work. That's why only undenatured is used in hospital cases. And the second thing is that is the nutrition of the cow. The nutrition of the cow. Whatever you feed the cow determines the quality of the milk you get, just in the same way that whatever you feed your tomato plants determines the quality of the fruit. So if you take what most whey protein is produced from confined animal feeding operations, in which the cows are in concrete yards and they're fed corn or wheat or pelletized chicken feathers or whatever is the cheapest legal food for cows that month. So you can see that the quality of the milk and the quality of the whey that comes from those animals is inferior. It doesn't have the protein structure that we need optimally to build our bodies. And believe me, we need that protein structure. And that's why I like the isolene protein, because I studied that particular protein in the 1990s and came up with a conclusion in my little book, The Right Protein for Muscle and Strength, that it was the best protein available in the world. And that's the isolene protein.
Well, Dr. Colgan, but some nutritionists think all the proteins are the same, regardless it comes from soy, peas, or even chicken.
Oh, yes, I've done that. You know, I mean, we've studied now at the Colgan Institute and with colleagues in various universities, we've studied all of the proteins for more than 30 years. I am amongst a few other stalwarts who have actually netted the blue-green algae from Klamath Lake and munched through mounds of this pretty ugly tasting stuff. We've also munched through chlorella, and we've also used soy. And you know, soy has a mechanism in it which inhibits trypsin in the body. When it inhibits trypsin, it produces a rather noxious gas. So, so that is what you're facing. And but the major problem with, and we've you know, nut and hemp and millet and golden pea, we've tried them all and measured their biological value. That is, how much protein is retained in the body for every gram that you eat. And they're all pretty low on the scale. Now, I know there are a lot of people in the world that live on vegetable proteins. but they are not the longest lived populations, and they are not the healthiest populations. The body needs a structure of protein that is very similar to the whey protein concentrate. It's the best protein that we have been able to find, and my colleagues have been able to find all over the United States at various universities. It is the best that we have found in 30 years.
Dr. Harper, my hat's off to you. Obviously, you incorporate nutritional intervention with your patients, and you've utilized Isagenix pillars of health in your patients. I'm sure you have shared some wonderful stories, maybe for this audience. So what are some of the unique cases you dealt with?
I've been doing complementary medicine since 1989. And Isagenix came out when? 2002, okay? So I'd already been associated with tons of supplements and trying different lifestyles and things like that to help my patients, and was very successful with that. However, once I got the Isagenix products, I'll tell you about one patient that I had where I was trying everything that I had learned the previous 13 years to keep him from having bypass surgery. He had already had an angioplasty, he had 2 stents, and now his surgeon wanted him to have bypass surgery. He couldn't walk up a flight of stairs without developing chest pains. He was my best friend, and I wasn't sure exactly what to do, so I gave it to his daughter because she needed to lose a little weight, and because she wanted to get married. And I said, well, let's, bring a little weight off you. And sure enough, that worked really well. But then her dad came to me and said, how come you didn't do this for me? And I said, because quite frankly, this is when it was brand new. I thought, I don't know what this will do for you. It might kill you for all I know. This is a brand new product. I don't know anything about it. He says, well, I can tell you this. I've been on the cardiovascular diet for 4 months, and I've lost 3 pounds. Says, and that's not going to work for me. So we put him on the Isagenix program, and at that time all we had was a 9-day program. And the ugly stuff. You guys are so blessed. You are so blessed. If you had to be thoroughly committed to drinking that stuff in the beginning. But anyway, so I put him on this for 2 weeks. He was on 7 different medications. He had all kinds of problems. We're not even going to go into the problems because that's unimportant, because Isagenix, the cleanse, does not cure any disease. I want everybody to understand that, because everybody will have their own unique experience with this product. Your body will determine what's going to happen here, not me, not Isagenix. And so I put him on this. On the 6th day of this cleanse, one of his symptoms disappeared, which was very shocking to him because he was having problems with that on a monthly basis. After being on it for a period of 6 months where he was doing 9-day cleanse, 2 weeks of maintenance, 9-day cleanse, 2 weeks of maintenance, he had lost about 60 pounds. We had to reduce his medications from 7 different medications down to 2 because he was doing so much better that I actually had to stop several of his medications. He was no longer having, I just can't tell you. That's the problem. I just can't tell you all the things that took place. I would love, hey, you know what? We did this once on a cruise. We went outside the 12-mile boundary where we weren't in the United States. And we talked about everything. So all I can say is, after 6 months, he was looking as good as he had when he was in high school. He was down to just 2 medications, and he was out walking 4 miles a day with no chest pains at all. Woo. Okay. This is why I like it.
Wow, that's amazing. Thank you, Dr. Harper. Dr. Messina, we know you think that more of medical professional, your respective field, should really be open-minded to opportunities like we have in Isagenix. So how do you see the value of our pillars of health for healthy aging, and how do you communicate this to your patient and to your colleagues?
I think the value of the pillars of health, and that's one thing I've been really impressed about with this company, is that it is a system for nourishing, cleansing, replenishing the body. And I hear so many patients come in, hey doc, what vitamin should I take? You know, what should, you know, they're always looking to supplement their horrible lifestyle with some magic pill. And they're always disappointed that it never works. And then finally, and I'll tell you, I've gone from the skepticism that you've heard just a while ago to what I like to term as a recovering doctor. And by that I mean that I'm now a doctor that will gladly deviate the classical system when it no longer serves me or those I choose to help. And what happens when you really sit back and get off of the merry-go-round for a second? You know, think about what's going on in the medical profession right now. My old Italian grandma told me, if it ain't broke, don't fix it. Let me tell you guys, it's broke. It's broke. And doctors are not happy campers right now. The medical system is broke, it's skewed, the revenues are down, their overhead is up, they're running around like rats in a maze, and they're basically triage officers in primary care right now, and they've got about 3 minutes with a patient. The last thing they want to do is hear about some new great nutritional system. Want to know how I get them? Do you? Anybody want to know how I get them? All right. You know, these guys are stressed out. I mean, they are absolutely stressed out. I hear them all the day. I'm sure Dr. Harper does too. All our colleagues are always looking for something else. They'll gladly plunk down $10,000, $20,000 on some stock market scam as long as they don't have to do anything. But in order to make a real change and stay true to their profession, one simple question I ask them, especially guys my age, is, what are you doing about retirement? Oh, gee, with the stock market and the real estate, oh my God, I had all my eggs in 2 baskets, everything's down. I'm going to be working till I'm about 75 years old. I said, yeah, I know how you feel. That's why I've transitioned into health and wellness. Well, what's that all about? I don't have time right now. Why don't you give me your email and your telephone number and let me get together with you and tell you about what I'm doing. But seriously, I do see value in all of this. Obviously, I do. But if you're talking about getting to healthcare practitioners, you have to get their attention. The average attention span nowadays is about 30 seconds. I think for a doctor, it's about 5, okay? So you really have to get their attention, and I'm an advocate of squeaky wheel gets the oil. Right. You have to stop them from that repetitive task that they're doing time and time and time again. You know what? If your doctor's overweight, point it out. Point it out, poke them in the belly and say, hey, doc, what are you doing about that? And the very best thing you could do to get a physician's attention is to be a product of the product and to continuously be a product of the product. And as he sees you marching in front of him, you know, all of these month after month, year after year after year, and, you know, eventually you throw enough mud against the wall and something sticks. But it's not like doctors don't want to embrace these things. It's really the nature of the system today. Sure. And you just have to find their hot buttons. And it usually has nothing to do with, you know, find out what their hot buttons are financially, what's going on with their practice. That's where I've actually had the most success.
That's great. Thank you. Dr. Harper, do you want to add to that?
Let me just explain a little bit more about what Dr. Messina was talking about. You don't understand how many doctors are dissatisfied right now. You truly don't understand that. There's 12 to 16% that are no longer even accepting Medicare. And once the Health Care Act becomes enacted and you add another 50 million people to that program and they take 500 billion out of it, we've already got another 30% of the doctors are saying, we're done. Okay? So what are they going to do? Now, one of the problems is they don't want to join with us. Why don't they want to? Because remember, I was taught this in medical school, and it is always, always, always true, regardless of what profession you're in. You're always down on what you're not up on. Okay? And so one of the things I found to help doctors out here, and this is true, it took me 3 years. It took me 3 years to cross the line from traditional to alternatives. So you just can't expect it to happen overnight. But what you can do is you can secretly find out who their patients are. And then you treat their patients and have that doctor monitor them. And once a good doctor, once he starts seeing things are changing, he will ask and want to know, because doctors, we're supposed to be helping people regardless of what it takes, okay? If a doctor, you're seeing patients that are being treated and the doctor's not interested, move on. Because there's too many doctors out there that really are interested in their patients, and then once they see their patients change, if you'll find those patients and secretly treat them and have the doctor monitor them, he'll be interested, okay?
Well, I want to ask another question, Dr. Harper. Obviously, conflict of interest comes into mind for a lot of health professionals and medical doctors. How do you communicate to your colleagues about this is the right thing to do?
And this actually came up when I was on the medical board in the state of Utah. One of the other members said, well, I don't believe that you should be selling supplements out of your office. And this is before I was associated with Isagenix, and I said, really? He said, yeah, because your decision-making process could be compromised by a $25 supplement. And I thought, well, then based on that logic, you as an allergist should never give shots to any of your patients. You should only diagnose them and refer them out. Shut him right up, okay?
Yeah.
Because if you follow that logic, it's ridiculous logic. No, it's very important to have doctors understand, and oh my gosh, in most states, they're able to sell drugs out of their office. They're able to sell casting materials out of their office. They're able to sell all kinds of things out of their offices. But when it comes to supplements, it seems like they've gotten a dirty deal. And somewhere up in their brains, they've been told, oh, this is wrong, okay? And so in a couple of states, it is. You can't sell anything out of a doctor's office. But most you can, and all they have to do is check with their medical boards. And it's a matter of education. That's what it really is, educating the doctor to realize, because you're selling, let's call it a President's Pack, a $500 pack, doesn't mean that it's going to influence his decision at all. If it did, my gosh, surgeons shouldn't be allowed to do surgery on anybody. They'd have to refer all their surgeries out. So it's the same process. And how many, in fact, my wife had a surgery once. Let's see, as I'm trying to remember how much it was like a 2-hour surgery, and it was $11,000. Okay? Well, that seems like that might influence my decision. A whole lot more than $500 President's Pack. So come on, we just need to educate them.
Well, we're running out of time, but I think this is such a great topic. And Dr. Messina, you and I were discussing this at Las Vegas for quite a long time. I mean, this conflict of interest and how to deal with it. Would you like to share with our audience, just brief, some of the things that you dealt with and some solutions that you have in order to communicate to these health professionals out there?
You know, this topic of ethical dilemma comes up, and I like to share my own resolution of the ethical dilemma that I went through with this. Is that even, you know, my entrance into Isagenix was so convoluted that, you know, I was taking it secretly. I didn't want anybody to know. Thank God the guy, my patient that signed me up, he signed me up as an associate, so I didn't know I was in the business. and then when my nurses wanted to do it, he signed them up under me, and all of a sudden this credit card shows up, and I throw it in the garbage, and God bless my wife, she pulls it out, and I said, oh no, I want nothing to do. Oh my God, I'm a doctor. You know, this is a conflict of interest. So, you know, I'm like skulking around, worried about what's happening. They keep putting more money on this thing. So the nurses are really excited about this, and they're enrolling patients, and I'm taking care of the patients, and I'm seeing all these amazing results. And I'm watching them, and I'm watching them clinically, physically, and oh my God. But no, I'm not going to recommend it because, my God, I'm a doctor, my reputation, and it's an ethical dilemma here. So one day, a patient comes in for a clinical trial, and it was for diabetes, and she didn't qualify because, you know, her blood sugar was too high. She couldn't qualify for the trial. And I'm there scratching my head, and she asked me, what's the matter, Doc? You know, you look preoccupied. And I said, you know, here I am about to hand you another Band-Aid for your diabetes when we should be talking about your primary problem, the fact that you're 140 pounds overweight. So she starts crying. I've tried everything. I said, look, I understand. But I found something that I am sure, if you take it like I tell you, will absolutely help you, but I have an ethical dilemma because if I share it with you, I will be compensated by the company, and I do not think that's ethical. She looked me right in the eye, and she said, wait a minute. Every time I walk into this clinic, you're compensated. And she said, now that you have something you know will help me, you have an ethical dilemma? And that did it.
Thank you. Well, we ran out of time. Aren't these panels wonderful? Will you please thank them? That was wonderful. Thank you. Thank you so much.